All right, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Merly on Time and a special edition of Beyond the Watch. Special because I am live and it is late at night. And I didn't do this on purpose. It's actually late at night for me, not so much late at night for my guest today. And just by the way, if you are joining, you can ask any questions that you want in the chat. You should know that there is about a 20 to 30 second delay before I will be able to see any comments or chat. If you say hello, I'm not going to acknowledge you in the chat or anything like that until we get to the part where we get beyond the watch and I start to ask Norm some personal questions. And if you have questions for Norm, I'll kind of check the chat at that time. I just don't want to be interrupting the flow of our chat by acknowledging people in the actual YouTube chat. And so don't be offended in that regard, but thank you for tuning in. If you're here, make sure you type a question out, say hi to one another and whatnot. And so my guest today, a very cool guy. How would I describe my guest? Well, first of all, you know him as Norman. I would say he is classy. I would say he is old school, vintage, maybe an old soul. I don't know if that would be an apt description for Norman, but he is my guest. It's not late at night, and I'm thrilled that he is able to come on and be with me today. And so, everybody, welcome Norman to the show. Hey, Norman, how are you?
Good. Wow, what an introduction. Thanks, man. That was great.
So is it accurate? Would it be accurate to call you an old soul?
Probably, yeah. I'm pretty much always obsessed with things of the past.
So are you a real history buff then?
No, I just get in. Well, I guess it depends on the topic. You know, I went through a phase where I was kind of obsessed with old nautical journals. So I've read a ton of those from like the 1800s. But for the most part, it's just kind of more of an aesthetic thing, and just kind of inspiration when you see some of the designs of the past or the architecture or fashion of the past, stuff like that.
Wow, very cool. And I was attempting, I have a friend who, very much like you, has a variety of, now what do you call those hats? It's not a top hat. What do you call that kind of hat that you're wearing? Just a hat?
This one's sort of like a faux Panama hat.
Okay.
You know, it has the aesthetic of one. But most of the hats that I wear are just, you know, the cheap bucket hats, worn fedora style. And I have I have a fedora and a couple of stingy brim fedoras. I forget the exact name for those. They have an exact term for them, but
okay,
it escapes me at the moment. I have piles of hats, so
yeah. No, it's so the video that I did where I kind of mimicked you. Hello, it's Chris. It's late at night. That's the only hat that I had. This stupid pink hat. Now I do have a good friend of mine that wears all kinds of hats like you do, and I reached out to him today. Originally, I was supposed to go into the nearest city that I live near, where he lives. To get an oil change for my car, because my daughter, who is in university, is using this car, and I wanted to get the oil changed before she left. I thought she was leaving tomorrow. Turns out she's not leaving until the middle of next week. But I sent my buddy a message, and I'm like, hey, could I borrow one of your hats for for today's episode, just so I could kind of feel like a Norman? But I did something just for you. We're going to do a wrist check, and I'm going to show you mine first. I thought, well, this is kind of the most vintage looking piece that I own. It's my new Seiko Recraft.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So square dial. I bought this from Long Island Watch. It's the SNK P23, I think. And interestingly enough, this one doesn't have any lume, which I thought it surprised me. Because the hour and the minute hand definitely have that white, what you would think would be lume-filled spots on the Iron
Good
Minihand.
decision there.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought, well, it was either that or my Orient Bambino, kind of a dressy, nice, classy watch.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd go with
Yeah.
the vintage. I thought I'd go with the vintage. Now, let me see if I can guess what you're wearing. Are you wearing the new Belova that you just got?
Ooh, close. I'm wearing the Dolce Vita.
Ah, oh, okay, yeah.
Whoops, if I can get it right. Yeah, my screen is kind of mirrored, so it's kind of weird to try and move. But yeah, this has been on my wrist pretty much since I got it for the most part. This and the Bulova. So I do have that one sitting next to me though.
Yeah, I could not believe the size of that. I just watched your video on that today. 32 millimeters.
They are itty bitty, itty bitty. So this crown is probably a normal size crown.
Yeah.
But on this one, it looks gigantic.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's such a cool piece. And what year was that one? Is that like a reissue, or is that one? Is it an original to the time period piece or a reissue?
Yes, it's original. At least the case, I believe, is. The dial, I think, has been redone.
Yeah.
The handles look pretty good, so they're probably redone as well. But this is probably from the 50s. It's Korean War era, but it looks like the A11s. It's kind of like an upgrade to them. So the case is solid stainless steel. It's not a base metal like the A11s, but it has the same dimensions as they have. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the A11s. I think the one you're referring to on just on Amazon and really sharp looking. But I've already kind of got the field watch itch scratched. I've got Seiko. It's a larger one, so it's like 41.5 to 42 mil. The one that I have, the SNZG, and then I bought Mark's from Long Island Watch, the Mitchell Day T they call it. It's really, really sharp, white dial, and then the field watch is static with the numerals and the 24-hour below that. So I've kind of gotten off the whole I'm going to get the Hamilton khaki. I remember we talked. I thought maybe I'll buy yours off of you, but it was the 38 mil, and I'm like, it's a little small for my almost 8-inch wrist, and then I've got those other two, and I thought, so I got a different Hamilton in mind. So, anyways, did you get any watches for Christmas?
I got the Dolce Vita before Christmas. Last year I got the pull router. What? I got the pull router for Christmas / birthday. So I made sure to wear it for Christmas, but the Dolce and the Bolivar were kind of Christmas gift-ish, even though I bought them for myself and I bought them a bit early.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got, for Christmas this year, I was mainly focusing on like tools and stuff. I'm trying to slowly collect tools to start opening up some watches and play around in there.
Oh, okay. Is that something that you have dabbled in a little bit before, or no?
No.
Okay.
No, so there are going to be broken watches. This is for sure.
Yeah.
But I want to do the microscope setup that some of the Chronoglide is doing, and he's like professional. But I like that because you're not hunched over your work. You can actually sit up straight, and you would need one anyway for some of the jewels and stuff, or if you're trying to troubleshoot what's going on. But I figure I've got so many like cheap vintage watches and they just kind of keep piling up. It would probably be good to start building some kind of rudimentary skill to, avoid having to send these things in there's just so many of them. It's like being a car guy with a bunch of cars, but I don't know how to work on cars.
Right.
I probably ought to figure out how to do that.
So now do you, are you talking about like taking the mechanical movements like apart? Piece by piece. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That would be fun to try.
Yeah.
I made the mistake. I saw on YouTube a video on how to regulate Seiko NH movement. And
Okay.
right at the open heart, there are two little dials, or two
Yep.
little, anyway, one is for the beat air, and the other is for just regulating the seconds hand if it's fast, slow. So I was so stupid. I mean, I was really kicking myself. One of my very first Seikos that I bought, which was like the 5KX, like the new Seiko 5 Sports one, beautiful orange dial on it, champagne hour and minute hand, but
Okay.
it was running quite fast. So I did this stupid thing of looking at this YouTube video and going, "Oh, that seems easy enough to regulate." So I took mine
Oh.
apart and I was using the magnification. I didn't film it or anything, but I was using the magnification app on my phone, and
Okay.
they showed you how to. But those things are actually fairly, I guess, stiff or a little bit rigid. And
Yeah.
so
Yep.
I ended up kind of putting a little bit of pressure, a little bit of pressure, a little bit of pressure, and then the little tool that I was using slipped down and hit the heart, or
Oh.
the spring or whatever inside the heart. And then when I pushed the
Oh.
crown back in, it was still moving. So I thought, oh, good. But then I went to make it slower by turning that dial, and it dial kind of went like this, and then bam, just
Oh.
there was no, like, it was just shot over, and then it actually moved the beat air lever as well, because they're kind
Yep.
of I don't know if they're
They
hooked
are.
onto the same screw or whatever. Anyway, it
Yep.
totally stopped. I could not get the thing to run again, and I ended up having to send it into Brandon at Case and Dial to
Okay.
replace the movement. So I was like, oh, I've got an old Pagani design still, that I might try it on, because I have an Aviate watch that I got that I'd actually like to sell because I got it for free, but it runs
Okay.
75 seconds fast per day. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
And
And you were regulating that on a time grapher, right? So you can watch what you're doing.
well, no,
Doing it blind, going in blind.
yeah, I was using a watch tracking app.
Okay.
Like, so I had it where I knew how fast or slow it was going. But I never even got to try to see if I regulated it at all, because I busted it. And it looks so bloody easy. It looks so bloody like, you watch the YouTube video on it. There's a few that are out there, and it looks so easy. I'm like, oh, I could do that. Why I did it on one of my favorite watches? It was just a stupid thing to do.
Yeah, I've done it to two different watches. I don't recall if I recorded the second one, but I did do a video on the first one, and it was a friend's watch, so that was fun. And yeah, and I still have that watch. He's not anxious to get it back, so I'm going to do one more video with it before I send it back, because I didn't fix the beat error. I was so proud of getting it regulated. Getting the accuracy right, that I was like, okay, I didn't break his watch. It's looking much better. I'll just put the case back on. But then afterward, I was thinking about it. I'm like, I really ought to fix the beat error. I mean, it's like fixing the other part. So I'll do one more video of it and fix that part of it. But the other watch that I regulated was actually, at the time, my absolute favorite tank watch.
Oh.
So that was really nerve-wracking.
And they're quite small then, right? Like to.
Yeah. And I used a toothpick, and I wasn't holding a camera or anything. So I can have my other hand kind of holding me steady. So if anything happens, I can kind of put the brakes on, it doesn't go very far. And again, I use a toothpick so I don't scratch anything. But yeah, that watch was a bit nerve-wracking. The cool thing about the time grapher is you can see what you're doing in real time, and it holds it for you. It's like having a case holder, because you have it upside down on the time grapher.
I didn't realize you could do it like that.
Yeah, so you put it on there upside down, and you just nudge that thing a little bit, and you wait a while, because it takes a little bit for the change to show up on there. But Within a few
Okay.
seconds, you'll see what you've done. Yeah, it's so easy that way. You can dial it into where it's like within a couple seconds if the movement's in good health, right?
Yeah.
I always look at like the I look at the amplitude and stuff, and if that looks decent, then I'll be like, okay, here's a band-aid. I'll get it dialed in. I do need to get it properly serviced at some point, but at least now it's accurate. But I mean, if it
Wow.
looks like it's sick, then it definitely needs to be sent in and not just regulated.
Yeah, yeah. So I just want to say we have some viewers on. I'm not ignoring you, but if you do have a question for Norm, please feel free to type it in. There will be a bit of a delay. I will get to some questions for Norm a little bit later on in the discussion. And so thank you guys for tuning in. And yeah, I will acknowledge some questions in a few minutes' time. So, Norm, I want to ask you. First of all, I want to congratulate you because I just noticed you're well over 1,500 subscribers now. Your channel seems to be growing very, very nicely. I do remember kind of celebrating with you, getting you to that
Yeah.
thousand marker. I wanted to ask you a two-part question, I guess.
Okay.
What got you into watches? What was the watch that really got you into watches? And the the transition from kind of either starting a collection and then going, I wanna do this YouTube thing. Tell me about that.
Sure. As far back as I can remember, I've always had something for watches. When I was a little kid, I spent a summer berry picking, and by the end of it, I had zero money because I would go and buy snacks and cheap, like gas station watches.
Okay.
Um, so I had all these, like, $10 like digital uh, watches and stuff, and nothing else to show for it from a summer of work. But and I've had like cool little fossils and whatever else, but never really thought much about watches. But then in the middle of kind of my nautical obsession, I was thinking it'd be great to get a dive watch. And I ended up getting an SKX 007,
Oh, nice.
and I knew so little about watches that I thought that it was more like those what are they called? Like the kinetic quartz, basically. I thought that the movement actually charged a battery. So
Oh,
when I
okay,
wore
yeah.
it, I had no idea. So when I wore it for half a day, put it on the nightstand, woke up and it was dead. I was like, this watch is garbage. What the heck? So I gave it to my son, who doesn't like watches. And then I started reading, and I was like, oh, what? No, hold on. Do you mind if I take that watch back? And that was actually what got me into it, was an SKX 007. And I ended up getting a bunch of other, or not a bunch, but I ended up getting a couple other dive watches. And I've done videos on this little story, but when my oldest son graduated, I bought him a dress watch, just nothing real expensive.
We
But when
talking
I
grade
saw
eight?
it, what's that?
We talking grade eight grad or?
High school.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I'm old. Um, um, yeah, and so when I saw that watch, I was like, wow, I've never really even paid attention to dress watches, even though my fossil that I had years and years ago was dressy. But when I saw this like kind of Bauhausy minimalist dress watch, I was like, ooh, wow, I need to get me a dress watch. And then it just kind of has snowballed from there to where pretty much all I had was dress watches. Then I tried one of the Palyat cheap Russian vintage watches, and everything snowballed from there. And now I'm like 75% vintage, a couple field watches, and one dive watch. So
What do you think it is about? I'm the same as you in the fact that I never bought a bunch of $10 or whatever watches, but I've never not worn a watch as long as I can remember since I got my first watch when I must have been around 9 or 10 years old. It was a Wayne Gretzky. I'm sure I actually tried to find this watch just on eBay or something like that. There are a couple of Wayne Gretzky watches on there from the early to mid 80s.
Okay.
but I don't think they were the one that I had. But as long as I can remember, I've worn a watch. And like every time I go into a department store, like Walmart, or Winners, or whatever, and there's a watch section, they're usually got some Timex and Casio, and then they've got all the cheaper ones that you can get for like $20 that look like chronographs, but none of the pushers work. But like I will gravitate to them and just spend like 10 minutes looking at them all.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
done that. I've done that forever. And so yeah,
Yeah.
for me it was kind of like during COVID, or I don't know what it was. I wore an Apple Watch for a long time. And I bought different straps for it. I bought different little faces for it just so I could change up the look and whatever feel
Yeah.
of it. But I ended up, I want to start getting some more watches. I ended up joining Watch Gang Quarterly,
Okay.
and it got me down the the path of learning about Seiko automatic movements, and I never ended
Yeah.
up getting one from Watch Gang. Like any watch with an automatic movement, they were all quartz chronographs actually. But I dig quartz chronographs. But anyway, what is it about watches, or what do you think it is about watches that once people kind of start a collection or start learning, like it is such a draw. It's such a it really is a powerful I don't know, addiction, or what is it about them that you think that makes it so?
Man. Yeah, I mean, I would love to say, the history, heritage, or the technology, having a machine sitting there on your wrist. But sadly enough, for me, it feels almost shallow because it's all aesthetics. I find watches incredibly beautiful looking. Um, and seeing a good watch on someone's wrist is just awesome. Which is so weird. It's so
Yeah.
weird to be sitting there watching a movie and I'm staring at some dude's wrist. I'm like, oh, that looks so
I
good.
wonder what that is. Yeah.
Yep. And my wife's over there rolling her eyes.
Another one.
I'm looking up seeing because I'm horrible at identifying watches. So I'll be watching a
Yeah.
movie and I'm like, I
Google it.
think that installation. Let me look.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I think, but even with me being like a lover of the aesthetic of them and stuff, I think that there's a lot of subconscious stuff going on with that because I'm not wearing bracelets and admiring those. So I think that even if you simply love the look of different watches, I think that subconsciously knowing that they're these crazy sophisticated machines, whether they're quartz or mechanical, I think that plays a factor in there. Otherwise, we would just be collecting like, pretty rings or bracelets or whatever. But yeah, I just absolutely love all the different aesthetics. I'm a hunter, so that's part of it too. I love hunting for watches. Like I say all the time, my social media is stuff like eBay.
Yeah.
My wife is scrolling through Twitter or whatever, and I'm sitting there on eBay looking at watches and seeing
Yeah.
what's out there.
Yeah.
But you find amazing stuff. I mean, some of the most brilliant watches I have in my cases and stuff were like $100, but they're like vintage Wittenauers that are just brilliant. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm not sure what it is either. It's just something that I think for me personally, it's when I started collecting, I just wanted a good looking watch. And the more that I've kind of going from the outside in. Now I'm appreciating, as I'm learning about new movements or different things, or even just the Seiko movement. I'm like, what's this? Like you said, what,
Yeah.
it died on you.
Yeah.
You didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. I definitely appreciate the workings of a watch. I spend a lot of time watching people do repairs on watches and reading up on how different, it's weird how difficult it is to get your mind over some things. Like you'll look at a video, you'll watch a person take a watch apart and stuff, but in the back of your mind, you're like, how does a balance spring work? And so for like the third time in a row, I have to pull it up and I'm like, oh yes, it's the angles of the jewels that keep it kicking back and forth, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I appreciate all of that, but as far as when I talk about aesthetics and stuff, I mean, that's the thing that I think has me obsessed. If it was all about the internals, I would just learn stuff and watch stuff. I wouldn't actually feel the need to buy anything. It's the looks that keep me buying.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so, what progressed you to start your YouTube channel? Like, what was the impetus for that?
I think for a while there, I was watching nothing but Watch Nerds on YouTube. That, you know, when I'm eating my cereal, I've got that on while I'm working. It's on a screen over off to the side. And at some point, I just kind of envisioned, like, if I did a channel, what would it be like? I had this idea of like Mad Men and just kind of chilling in a lounge type of an idea. And I was like, that would be fun to try and create that mood and just talk about watches with people. But it took me a long time to actually go for it because I'm like, what do I know? You know, when I started my channel, I didn't know much at all. I'm like, this is going to be ridiculous. I'm going to be some guy who doesn't know what he's talking about, trying to talk about watches.
Yeah.
But it's at some point I just kind of dove in, and I have to say that first video was quite an adventure. You know, you turn on the camera and I'm like, I don't know if I've ever really been in front of a camera other than, you know, someone just grabbing a camcorder at a wedding or something.
Right.
So yeah, that was pretty fun, staring at a phone and trying to have a natural conversation with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the first time I did it, I didn't have any equipment. I had a laptop with OBS software that I do use, but I didn't have a camera tripod. I didn't have any lighting. So I literally used, and I think there's one in here. So this this is just your iPhone clip, right? Your OtterBox clip. And I'll show you what I did. I literally did one of these and put the phone, I just hooked it onto the top of my shirt and I put the phone in, and then I had a cord going from it to my computer so I could see on my computer but I mean, it was ridiculous. And what really got me into it.
Are those videos still up? Because I need to see that.
What's that?
Are those videos still up? Because I need to see that.
Yeah. My first.
All right, I'm going to be sorting your videos and checking out the earliest ones. Which is fun to do.
Yeah, my first few videos, they were all hanging off of my shirt.
Nice.
And when I started, obviously wanting to start my watch collection, YouTube was a go-to. So I watched when I was thinking about joining Watch Gang because I saw ads on Facebook or whatever. I never got on Instagram until I started my channel, and not even right away. Like, it was something that I got on sometime after. But, you know, Watch Gang was there, so I watched a lot of Watch Gang unboxings. Then, of course, I got onto Jody's channel, Just One More Watch. It will be one of the very first things that pops up eventually, and just, you know, watched him. And I'm like, oh man, this is cool, and how he did his reviews. And I thought, but I remember when I first did it, I was like, what do I say? I don't even know. I'm like, this is a nice looking watch. Look at the hour and minute hand. They're cool. Look at the seconds hand. It's cool. Like, it was horrible. But my
favorite thing is watching my earlier videos because I forget what idea I had. I think I was going to do like a best of, or try and, there was a review I did, and it was like 14 minutes long when the review really should have been like 7 or 8. Because I didn't cut anything out. I just left everything in there. But when I went back and watched it, I was like, I am not redoing this. This is so cringy and horrible. I mean, I'm watching this video and there's so many parts where I'm just like creepily staring at the camera. I'm just like, not doing anything. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm terrifying myself.
Yeah. And people will definitely let you know when you are doing something wrong. My
Oh
favorite
man.
comment yet was I did a review on my Belova lunar pilot, but I was calling, well, I just said it, Belova instead of Bulova. Whether it's Canadian, I don't know, but someone called me, and I referenced this on watching James' episode that I did with him. But I got it wrong. But so this guy was, going back and forth with me. I'm like, well, some say potatoes, some say, I was just kind of joking. And someone called me an illiterate buffoon.
Oh,
No,
there's no need
I
for
just
that.
thought it was hilarious. So I just replied, I resemble that remark, which is something a buddy
Yeah,
of mine used to say.
yeah,
Instead of I resent that remark, I said, I resemble that remark. And
yeah,
um,
yeah.
there was another, I think one of my most viewed videos is on a Timex Expedition Scout. And in that particular video, because I am not at that point, or wasn't at that point, overly confident in talking about watches, I would say something and then my wheels would be turning and I'd be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and over and over again. And
Yeah.
so one guy commented something along the lines of, "This is a lot of and uhs and uhs and a little bit about a watch." Um, so then I wasn't overly offended by it, but then I watched the video back and I'm like, "Holy crap, he's right!" And so in the next one I did, I listened, like I edited it, and then I listened back to it, and I had to delete I don't know how many and uhs, like I spliced them out.
Yeah.
But
Yep. Yep.
YouTube can be
Yeah,
a fun place.
when I do podcasts, because a lot of those I'm just like driving in my car. When I'm doing the editing of that, I swear it gets cut down by half, just getting rid of ands and uhs and yep.
So podcast, what podcast do you do? I didn't know you had a podcast.
Um, yeah, I started one called Watch the Road. So my idea was I would think up topics, and while I'm commuting, I'll talk about them. But I kept running into technical issues with my old phone because that's what I was using. And, I would record an hour podcast. And then when I get back home and I'm listening to it, the audio cuts out. And I'm like, this is unusable. I just wasted an hour. And that happened numerous times. So then I renamed it and tried a more traditional, just sit down in front of a microphone podcast, and did a couple episodes of those, did some research ones on Gerald Genta, a two-parter. But now that I have a new phone, it's working just fine. So I've been doing a few Watch the Road versions of the late night watch talk stuff. And I'm trying to be more consistent with that, but the tough thing is the channel is my priority. So if there's burnout or something, it's the podcast that takes the beating, sadly. But
Yeah, I would never be
yeah,
able to do something like that because where I live, the cell phone reception is so horrible
mm,
that it would constantly be going in and out. But that's really cool. I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah.
Just want to jump in and say to everyone that's joined, thank you for joining. Again, if you have a question for Norman, please type it in the chat. I'm going to get to those in just a minute. I'm just looking here now. A lot of you are just saying hello to one another, making some other comments, but I'm looking for specifically questions. If you have any for Norman, please type them in the comments. And thank you very much for doing that.
And I can't see the comments, so you can trash talk me all you want.
Yeah. That Norman, what a dickhead, said. No,
Man,
just-
that guy sucks.
So, what is next in your? Well, you talked about wanting to get into taking watches apart. Anything else that you have? Is that something that you maybe want to highlight on your channel as well? Doing some videos of that, or what do you see in the? What ideas do you have brewing for your channel?
Yeah,
Coming up?
that in regards to that particular effort, I haven't really figured out what I'm going to do as far as how it relates to the channel. My main thoughts there are just practicality of having a ton of old mechanical watches, and having to constantly find someone who will service them, because not all of them are, not all of them are Wittnauers or Certinas, right? Or they're just weird pieces, and trying to track down someone who will actually work on them. I'm sure that I don't see myself doing a repair channel at all. So I think it would be more like maybe videos exploring different movements. So it'd be like a part of the work that I'm doing there, and be like, oh, let's see what this crazy vintage Bulova looks like when we open it up, and kind of do exploring like that. But as far as collection goes, if you were asking about that,
yeah.
Okay. This year, like last year, is kind of up in the air. The hilarious thing is, in the last, not to bring it up again, but in the last podcast that I did, one of the topics was that. And the only thing I had thought of when I was kind of making mental notes before doing it was going after an Omega DeVille with the crosshairs, black dial. But really nothing else. But while I was doing the podcast, all these watches are coming to mind. So near the end of it, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, guys. There's actually a bunch of watches that I might be going after this year, because I would like to see what a small dive watch looks like, a thin, small dive watch. And I've seen one in 36 millimeters, and it's like looking at a subby. It's minimal. I think it had dot indices on it. It has an actual bezel, but this thing is 36 millimeters, and it's not super thick.
Wow.
It was vintage, so I wouldn't be actually wearing it in water probably, but it had a really cool like aesthetic to it, and it would be so weird to see it in like an Explorer size. So that's one thing. I would like to get one of the Tritium GPQ, the Marathon GPQs.
Oh, okay.
Those intrigue me. I don't know if I would wear it much, but they really, every time I see them, I'm like, man, that would be interesting to have one of those to throw on every now and then. And there was a watch that I got rid of. It was a Bauhaus, a Zeno Bauhaus winder. And I really wanted to replace that, but there was no option because it was 40 millimeters. And with that particular design and case, that thing wore like a 42, 43. It was a plate because it's really thin. It's a cylinder dial with no bezel whatsoever. When I opened it up, I was kind of sad because it felt like I was putting on, like a $50 fashion watch from some random clothing store. It was just gigantic. And the other day, I'm kind of scooping a little bit. The other day on eBay, I found one that looked just like it. It was vintage. It was like 36 or 35, I think, millimeters, but the thing was $2,000.
Oh.
And it was a brand I'd never heard of before.
Right. Yeah.
So I started poking around that day. I was like, sometime this year I'm going to replace that exact aesthetic because it's so Bauhaus and just great looking. And the only problem was the size. And I ended up finding something. It's not like a great watch. It's very affordable. It's by a brand that's probably a fashion brand. I don't know much about them, but fashion in the sense that all they do is watches though. But so I ended up picking that up. It hasn't arrived or anything, but
cool.
So I think my main thing, there's a couple higher end vintage watches that I want to go for, like the DeVille, and I would like to get a silver dial pull router because I'm obsessed with those watches. Some pieces like that, but other than that, I have absolutely no idea. Just like last year, I remember like trying to come up with a video idea for what I'm going to do in 2022, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to keep on exploring, I guess.
Yeah, I don't really have any long range plans as far as my channel is concerned. I'm stressing a little bit less about trying to get a video out like every week or whatever. Just life gets in the way, and when it becomes more of a hassle than pure enjoyment of doing it, I just don't bother. But I'm just going to continue to do what I've been doing. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't, but for watches, I did get a couple of Timexes over Christmas, kind of for myself. My last video, or one of my last videos, was the Waterbury chronograph. Very similar to
Oh,
the
okay.
Q Timex chronograph that had been released, but the reverse panda that I have, I did a YouTube search and I couldn't find anyone anywhere that did a video on it. So,
Nice.
and then I got a really cool Timex that I should get next week, the Compass Temp and Tide one. Um,
Okay.
it's super cool. Potentially, I mean, I don't know if it functions exactly, accurately or whatever, but it's got three pushers, one for a compass. So when you push it, the fourth hand becomes a compass. Uh,
Okay.
when you push it, there's one for temperature. So it's got some sort of a mechanism in the watch that will read your air temperature or temperature underwater.
Okay.
Mind you, when you push the pusher underwater, I don't know. I have to really read about that because typically pushing a pusher underwater wouldn't be good. But the fourth hand will tell you the temperature.
Okay.
Um, and then the other one is a tide, like for high tide or low tide.
Okay.
So yeah, but it's a really, really amazing looking watch too, and
That's
I'm getting
cool.
that one soon. So
Fun to
yeah,
play with.
but as far as other ones, I mean, I'm trying to save up for a Tudor. I really do want to get a
Ooh,
Tudor,
nice.
Black Bay, I think, um,
Yeah.
and then Christopher Ward. Really, really love Christopher Ward watches.
Yep.
I've got a C63 Sealander on my hit list, and then the Hamilton Khaki Scuba is what I want to get for my Hamilton. Um,
Okay.
the problem I'm going to have is I'll be able to save for the Christopher Ward and the Hamilton before I get to that Tudor plateau, right? And so,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like,
that's always tough.
and it's not easy for me to save a lot of money. And I had a setback over the summer. My tile bed for my septic system went, and
Oh,
that ate up all my savings and then some. And I
oh,
didn't have a lot saved up for the watches, but I'm like, I gotta put that toward my tile bed because it was just under 15 grand to replace. It wasn't fun. So
yeah, that hurts.
yeah. So I'm gonna get to Beyond the Watch now, and
Great.
so if you have a question for Norman that is beyond watches, I would love to have it. Average Joe, he did ask, why do you only do reviews late at night? Kind of creepy.
Well, the reason is actually very practical, because we have people in the house, and I don't really have a separate space for it. And so at late at night is when I've always done my creative stuff. So when my wife falls asleep, I hang out for a little bit, and then I would go down and make music or do programming or whatever. So it made sense that when I start a channel, I might as well do it at night. But I almost named the channel something around that, but I was like, man, what if in the future I stop doing it at night? What if something else, what if my schedule changes or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't want it tied to that. So I had to come up with a name that didn't really reference when I'm doing it, but it ended up being the introductory phrase anyway. I don't even know where it came from. It just started happening. So
Yeah. And so I just thought I do these episodes. They're purely self-indulgent. They're just for me. They truly are. They're just for me. Personalities, YouTubers, whatever that I really enjoyed watching. The first time, I don't remember the first video of yours that I saw, but
okay.
the only thing I remember about it is that intro where you kind of go through your house and the lights, the watches, and then I'm like, that's a freaking cool intro. I like that. And
Thank
so
you.
I've been watching you for a while now, and I enjoy your videos. And one of the comments that I got, similar comment on more than one occasion when I was promoting our talk, was just how well respected and you're just revered. I mean, you're just a solid guy and a good guy. And even Average Joe, he says he just said the same thing. He's a good dude.
Wow, thank you so much.
You're very well respected. You have this manner about you. You have, you know, you're old school. You're just, I just, I'm seriously captivated by you because I don't know too many. I only know one other person that, you know, I would say is similar to you as far as how they dress and whatnot. But I want to get into, you know, what was your upbringing like, and what has made you the way that you are right now? Where did you grow up you're in Seattle, right? Yes, or Washington
About an
State?
hour away outside of it, yeah. Yeah, I've grown up within half an hour of where I've lived my whole life within an hour sphere of here.
Oh, okay.
And I was an absolute 80s kid. So, which explains a lot. So my days consisted of getting up, eating cereal, watching G.I. Joe and Transformers, and then going outside and playing in the woods until my mom had to force me to come in at night.
Yep.
So I'm always in my head imagining things, always wanting to create stuff.
So what did you do when you played outside? Because correct me if I'm wrong. Like I played a lot of road hockey, baseball. You don't come off as an overly sportsy guy, am I right?
The most when I was young, I played some sports here and there, but I was pretty quiet. So if I ended up like I remember having to change schools or whatever, and I was like, I'm not joining this because I don't know anybody, so I'm not playing baseball anymore. And that was the end of that. Yeah, like Kung Fu is about the most sporty I do.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And so we had a lot of woods. It was a lot of imagination stuff. So a lot of like finding tree bark and pretending they're spaceships, taking Transformers out there and having battles in the woods. So as time went on, like a lot of, you know, if we transition this into like fashion or things that I'm into, that's kind of how everything else has gone. Like I'll see something and it inspires me. Like all the sci-fi watches on my shelf there. All of that came from a trip a few years ago to Disneyland, and we went through Tomorrowland, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I'm picturing this world populated with people of what the people in the 80s thought the future would look like. So I'm seeing all these people with silver robes and stuff. And when I got home, I was just totally tripping on like synthwave and retro future. And so, of course, I was like, I'm going to hunt down watches that look like they came straight out of a sci-fi movie. And so I started gathering those up, and then of course there was the whole nautical phase that was before that, and then Mad Men came along, and it was just like, oh, not only are their watches brilliant, but the fashion's amazing, the architecture's amazing. It's crazy to see a world that we can barely relate to anymore, for good or bad, and that was a huge inspiration. But at least watch wise, that really kind of pushed me over the cliff for dress watches. But the fashion thing didn't really kick in until we did a trip with my brother and his wife to Vegas. And we were like, we're going to go. We love James Bond, both of us.
Okay.
And so we're like, we're going to go to the Skyfall Lounge because we were staying at the Delano, and it's right there. And it's no cover charge. So like, we're going to go to the Skyfall, can't mess with the name. It's a rooftop lounge. So let's bring suits and stuff. And so I dug out one of my old pork pies and a suit and stuff. And after that trip, I've pretty much continued to dress like that. It was such a great trip. I mean, the Skyfall Lounge is brilliant. They make amazing cocktails. And we went outside where there's almost like bleachers. It's open air and they have the heaters there and you could just look out over the strip. And we were sitting there. My wife was like, "What watch is that guy wearing?" And I looked down and I'm like, "I have no idea. It looks huge. So I'm guessing it's nothing overly impressive. I don't know." And my wife, being herself, is like, "Excuse me, sir, what watch are you wearing?" And it turns out he was wearing a Panerai with some orange, no, not an orange dial, but an orange strap on it. And we ended up talking with that guy for like 3 hours. He was from Bermuda, so he sounded like a National Geographic narrator.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
I mean, he could tell us about buying socks at Target. And I'd be like, "Oh, that sounds so amazing. Keep on talking. Like, this is so exciting." Yeah. And after that trip, I've just kind of been going for the smart casual thing ever since.
So how long ago was that trip then?
Uh,
How old are you? Like we were talking earlier, and
mhm.
you don't. Um, you mentioned yeah. So how old are you? I'm 40. I was born in 76. When were you born? I'm 40.
74.
I'll be 40. I just turned 47, or I'll be 47 or 40. I don't know. I can't do math very good.
You're a couple years younger than me.
Oh, okay. So you're
Yep.
40. You're 48, 49.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
48. Yep. So we're a couple of old guys.
Yeah, getting there. You
Yep.
definitely have a retro feel to you, and what's cool about that is like my other friend that kind of dresses up like you or dresses like you do. I have to say it doesn't seem to suit him as well as it suits you. Like I couldn't.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But I've known him for such a long time, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where I love the guy, and that's just the way he is now. But it was just like so I've never seen you any other way, and it just
Yeah.
it
This is
totally
true.
suits you, right? So for him, it's just kind
Yeah.
of funny. I'd be like, he'd post a picture on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm like, oh, Patty, check out David now.
Uh,
But
I should do that. I've done a couple vlog videos. Like after Kung Fu or whatever, I'll record something in my car, so I'm like in a t-shirt or whatever. But I should just do a full-on video where I'm like just PJing out, just lounging,
it'd be
just
it'd
sitting
be a
around.
shock to the system. So you mentioned, you know, getting to was it high school, not kind of knowing. So did you move around quite a bit, or just a couple of times at those odd transition moments when were you more introverted than extroverted, kind of growing up in high school and
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I was a super quiet, like super tiny, scrawny little kid. And I didn't move at all, but I was going to a school I was going to a private school like a half an hour away and until sixth grade. And then I went to public school from there. And so I was on like a local baseball team at that time. And when I switched to public school, I was like, I don't want to play baseball. I don't know anybody here. I'm just going to sit here in the corner and I don't want to talk to anybody.
okay.
Yeah, I've never moved. I was always in the same house.
So what are you like now as an adult? Are you have you become more extroverted, or are you still kind of, when you get into a crowd of people, are you still a little more reserved and to yourself, take you a bit to open up, or what's it like for you now?
I am definitely pretty extroverted, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
For the most part, if it's like let me think. For the most part, pretty extroverted. Like if there's like a gathering of people or whatever, I'll chat and whatnot. I guess if it's a little bit more formal, like people sitting around at like a family table or whatever, maybe it, yeah, for the most part, extroverted.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely situational. I'm
Yeah.
kind of a I don't
The
know.
less fun it is, the more introverted I am. Like if it's kind of an awkward gathering or whatever, I'll be the person hiding in a corner, not wanting to talk. But if it's fun, I'll be talking to everybody. I don't even care.
Right on. Right on. So tell me about your family. You've been married for how long?
Long time. Last year was our 25th, and
Hey, yeah.
nothing. But in the future, we will make up for it with trips and stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
graduations and stuff took a toll. So
And so how many and so 25 years. Did you meet your wife in college, university? Tell me about that. How did you meet?
well, I hope everyone's sitting down because that's or comfortable because that's quite a story. I was kind of pondering it today because I was guessing you would ask that, and like these are great stories, but there's like so many of them. So the first time that I met her, she was 17, and I'm a few years older. And my girlfriend at the time introduced me to her,
Ah.
and I have no idea why. I think it has something to do with the fact that she was cheating on me at the time, um, which I found out just like in a scene of a movie. Like we went into a coffee shop, and I'll change everybody's names. We went into the coffee shop, and the barista's like, "Oh, you're not with Bob today?" And
Oh,
that,
oops.
that was how I found that out. But yeah, so I was totally confused. Like, okay, we're hanging out with this 17-year-old goth girl. Okay. But at that time, we all went to Denny's and we would just drink coffee till the sun came up. So there's like huge crowds of like punks and weirdos and stuff, and we're all like converging on Sherry's and Denny's and like a weird, chaotic beatnik group that we didn't even realize we were behaving like beatniks. And I went into one of our favorite Denny's and looked over, and all the way across the restaurant is this booth that faces the front door, right? And sitting in the center of the booth is my wife in a leather jacket looking hardcore, surrounded by dudes. And that was the first I had seen her in a couple of years or whatever. And I was like, holy crap, that is like, she is now one of the hottest chicks I've ever seen. What in the world? And so I ended up seeing her at that same place late, like a few weeks later. And at that time, I had courage. So I just went over there and slid into the booth. I'm like, hey, how's it going? We should totally hang out sometime, blah, blah, blah. And then this dude sits over on the other side of me. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? And then I went back to talking to her about hanging out and stuff. And then this guy starts telling me that I need to respect Ozzy Black Sabbath because that's my roots. Over and over again. He's like drunk and saying this over and over again. Turns out that was her boyfriend at the time. And I'm like, I had no idea, and I'm macking on her. But at one point we bumped into each other when we were single. And so we did coffee and a few times, and then we were like, we should just be an item because you're so easy to hang out with and you're amazing, blah, blah, blah. And ever since then, there's been very few days that we have not been together.
That's amazing. So did you say she was in wearing goth in her teenage years there?
Yes, we were absolutely weird. So I was in an industrial guy at that point in time, shaved head, all kinds of crazy goth gear or industrial gear. And
So how old are
yeah,
you? She's 17 and how much older are you?
I'm 3 years older.
3.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I first
Not
met her,
that.
it was like, okay, there's a little kid goth girl. Okay. But then, 2 years later, when she was 19 or 18 or 19, whenever we bumped into each other again, it was completely different at that point.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you started to date, how long? Because now I presume she's in her early 20s, you're in your mid 20s, or when you reconnected a couple years later or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
how long before you realized, okay, I'm gonna marry this girl, and tell me about how you proposed and how that went.
Do I have to tell that story? Oh, terrible.
Mine's not very good, so
Well,
yeah.
when you were saying that, I was thinking, I must have bumped into her earlier. Like it must have been more like 18. She must have been 18 because she was 19 when we got married, and I was 21.
Oh, okay.
Uh, Yeah, the
Young,
proposal was really bad. I
young
was,
bucks. Wow.
yeah, yeah. I was not good at romantic things at all. So the proposal was,
Okay, it can't be any worse than mine, so it's all right.
oh, we'll see. So, I mean, we knew what was going to happen. And so my brain was like, well, this is just,
Yeah.
technicality or whatever. I didn't see the romance in it because I was just, yeah. And so I basically proposed returning to our car from the mall.
All right. Yeah.
That's
And
bad. And so
that's
and
fine.
she never watches my videos, so I can say this and it won't let the cat out of the bag. But at some point, when I can afford, like, and I'm going to talk quieter because she's over there in the other room. When I can afford like a decent, really nice ring or whatever, I'll make that right, because that weighs on me amongst all of my other mistakes.
Right. Well, I mean, those are material, right? It's not
Yeah.
about like I know mine. So when I've shared my proposal story on a couple of these episodes, but I'm the kind of a person that if I had a gift for you, for example, I couldn't wait to tell you about it. Couldn't wait to give it to you. So I just can't. So I had this whole thing planned where I was going to take my wife out for a walk along the beach and blah 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 blah. And I had the ring for. We were in college at the time, and I had the ring for about a month, and I hadn't seen her in the in between getting the ring and actually proposing, but I picked her up or she picked me up. I can't remember how that worked out, and it was Halloween, and we're driving home, and I just couldn't wait. So we stopped somewhere, probably to take a pee break or whatever. She was. I got back to the car, waiting for her to get back to the car, and I'm like, I'm just gonna do it now. I'm just gonna do it now. So she got in the car, and I said, because it was Halloween, I said trick or treat, and she just kind of looked at me funny, and then I just opened the box and said, "Will you marry me?" I was sitting in the driver's seat. She was sitting on the passenger seat. There was no kneeling. There was nothing. It was just, I have to get this over with. And yeah, it was awful.
At least you were able to wait long enough to get back to the car.
Yes.
So you weren't proposing to her at the bathroom door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you've mentioned kids. How many kids? How old are you? Your kids have graduated. How many kids do you have?
We have two boys, 19 and 22.
Nice. So are they
Yep.
both at? Is the 22-year-old at home still, or is he?
He just wrapped up EMT school. He
Oh,
did
wow.
running start, so he only had a couple years of to wrap up for college. They're both basically kind of taking similar routes. So he wants to get into law enforcement, maybe detective work, at least is where he was interested in.
Very
That may have
cool.
changed some. And then my youngest wants to be a firefighter. So they both get to do some EMT stuff, and
Very cool. And what about yourself? What you said, you mentioned something about going downstairs and creating music, and
Mhm.
what do you do for a living?
I'm a developer, so I mainly back end stuff. So I stand in front of a computer screen and type code and stuff, write
Okay.
queries and whatnot.
So
Yeah.
software or like, do you write programs and create software, or what is, or yeah, what is it?
Yeah. Um, kind of a mishmash of lots of things. So essentially, so it's Regents, so it's like medical insurance stuff. But our client is actually the other part of the company, right? So you have your business area, and they're your clients. So the tools that they need, you're building and stuff like that. It's not like having to find external clients and
Oh, okay.
whatnot. So I do all kinds of things, whether it's apps or jobs that run or whatever it is. Yeah.
Cool. And
Yeah.
you were able to do that mostly probably from home then during COVID, because it's like a
Yeah.
lot of
Even
computer
before
based.
then. Yeah. Yeah.
So did it transition back to like do you have an office that you go to or do you do it mostly from home now?
I was working from home prior to everything going crazy. But I used to go in like once a month or so, get the team together and kind of do lunch or whatever. But ever since then, I have not been in an office in years. And yeah, I'm not sure when they're actually going to open up the local one. But yeah, so everyone's pretty much remote still.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Very cool. And
yeah.
so you mentioned your trip to Vegas, and my wife and I are coming up to our 25th anniversary this September. She would love to go to like a sandals resort of some sort
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
Caribbean or whatever, but we haven't really gone anywhere overlay. But have you traveled much, and where would you love to go with your wife?
I we vacation as much as we can, but I haven't traveled a ton. Um, Mostly within the country, um, but we do have some craziness planned for at some point in the future. I I know that last year we were going to try and do Finland and Germany because my wife's dad has history there, lineage there, and I would love to tour the Nomos factory. Uh,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, we have some crazy trips planned in the future, but for the most part, we kind of stick around. Like we have our favorite spots. We love theme parks, so we love going to Florida and hitting Universal. And we love Louisiana, so we hit there whenever we can. Hawaii, but that's been a little while. We did Palm Springs for the first time this year, and of course, I absolutely love it. So we'll probably try and get back to there. Um, Mainly, we do theme parks though, and I feel like when the boys move out, we're probably still going to be doing theme parks.
That is so that's like the kid in you kind of idea, right? Or
Yeah,
yeah.
yep. Just go and eat amazing food, go on some roller coasters, um, hang out in the adult Disney area, get some margaritas or whatever. It's always fun to do that and then ride a roller coaster. Yeah.
So what was your favorite 80s movie growing up then as an 80s kid? What was your favorite movie?
Oh, um, as a kid, or when I was young, I would have to say probably something like Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Oh, okay, yeah.
the adventure of it all. But after the fact, right, seeing those movies after the fact,
Sure.
I think I think of that era. Probably my all-time favorite has to be like an actual franchise, and it would be Aliens. I
Oh.
absolutely love the Aliens movies. Just phenomenal.
Yeah, mine was The Goonies.
That was a big one too, because
Yeah.
the adventure.
Yeah. And then back
I
Back
love
to the
anything
Future, of
adventurous.
course. But
What was that?
my kids, I Back to the Future. Um,
Mm,
the first one, phenomenal. The second, Back to the Future, I've never seen a worse movie in all of my life.
mm,
I remember watching it years ago, thinking this thing sucks, and then I went about, I don't know, not recently within this past year, I thought I just kind of went and watched a bunch of these 80s movies that I grew remember watching like the comedies Airplane and Naked Gun
yep.
and I
Yep.
watched Back to the Future and I thought, oh, and Karate Kid.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
watched
In the black hole.
The Black Hole. I haven't seen that one.
Dude, Disney's the black hole. Like, so
Ah,
you have to put up with the cartoony looking robots, and the stiff looking robots, but the opening and closing theme music is phenomenal, and the visuals of seeing this huge ship in the blackness of space right outside a black hole is awesome.
oh, I'll have to check
Uh,
that out.
I just watched that movie like twice a couple weeks ago while I was video editing, so it was just on in the background. But yeah,
Yeah, and
that movie's phenomenal.
I couldn't believe when I watched Back to the Future 2 how terrible. I mean, absolutely terrible. It was, and I didn't even watch it
Yeah,
the second time around or third, whatever it was.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
just terrible. And you mentioned kung fu, so tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll wrap up our talk. But so,
Sure.
do you do it regularly still? Are you is there belts in that? Are you a black belt, or what's it all about? Let me know.
Yeah. So I teach it.
Oh, you teach
And
it. Cool.
yeah, I had a school up until a couple years ago. It was tucked away way off the road. I'm not a business person, so it just kind of slowly dwindled away. And I ended up meeting a guy who runs a Taekwondo school, but he does like multiple different martial arts out of his building. So it's like a big family of them.
Right.
And so he offered to give me you can come in like Tuesdays and Thursdays or whatever and teach Kung Fu. They handle all the business stuff and just give me half of whatever comes in. And it's perfect. So I can just show up, teach. And that is actually what funds my watch collection. So,
Very. That's cool. So
yeah, because
now,
I mean, I don't have to put it back into the school, all of it back into the school. So I have
right.
some that actually make some income for my work.
Yeah.
Years prior to that, I just put it into the school because I felt guilty taking anything out.
So now
I
are
get a little
you?
paycheck.
So what are the levels of like is Kung Fu a belt system, or is it like, are you,
It,
since you teach it,
yeah,
what are you
we
at?
call them sashes. We call them sashes, but there's 10 different levels. And right now, I'm not even sure exactly what colors we're going to go with because the availability of different sashes has changed. So in order to get 10, you have to have some that have a black stripe on them. You can't just do solid colors because there's not 10 colors that you can find when you go to the different suppliers and stuff. So last time I looked, the colors we used to get weren't even available. So I really need to kind of start pondering what I'm going to do in that regard. But there's 10 levels. There's 10 levels to reach black,
And
basically.
are you a black, are you a black belt then? What level are you at?
Second degree black belt. The second degree basically I earned by teaching. So probably more like a first degree black. Even though you
That's so
learn a lot
cool.
teaching, you know. Um,
What got you into Kung
we're
Fu? What got you into that?
we're a really what's that?
What got you into Kung Fu? Like,
Waking up and realizing that I'm no longer a beanpole. And I didn't really want to join a gym, so I was like, okay, I really need to get fit somehow. So maybe I'll do martial arts or something. I used to watch the old Kung Fu show, so let's do that. And
okay.
it was one of the few things that I was really good at. Usually, I have to really, really struggle to be average at something, and I was okay at this. So, yeah, when my seafood got too busy and stuff, he had me helping him out. And at one point, he was like, either the school's going to go away or you're going to take it over. And it's up to you. So, yeah.
That's really
That's
cool.
why.
I would
Yeah.
never in a million years have guessed that you were a Kung Fu black belt. That just
Yeah. Yeah.
that is just so cool. So,
Yeah.
wow, that is really neat.
Yeah. Pretty
And so are
crazy.
you able to then, because you're a black belt, like if someone's going, you're able to like certify someone as a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4? Are you able to give
Yeah.
certification, or how does
I
that?
have to be, yeah, I have to be a level above them to be able to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I can do black sashes, but I couldn't do second degree. I would have to
Yeah.
move up myself or find someone who would be willing to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. That is so cool. Well, listen, we've been talking for a while, and
Yeah.
there is no more questions on here that I can see, and
Okay.
so
I feel like we need to close with a joke.
all right, go for it.
Okay. So I love dark stuff. I love horror movies and stuff. So I feel like we need to close with a really dark joke.
Okay.
And I was reminded about this last night when people around me were telling jokes and stuff. So I was like, oh, I definitely have to tell this on this video. Okay, so how many dead corpses in a cellar does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Dead corpses in a cellar.
To screw in a light bulb, how many?
You got me.
I don't know either, but I do know that it's more than 7.
Nice. Awesome. Well, with that, we will conclude this talk, and I do want to encourage everyone to please go and subscribe to Norman's channel, Killing Time with Norman. His channel is tagged in the title of the video as well as in the description of this video. And if you happen to be watching from Norman's channel, would appreciate you subscribing to me if you haven't done so yet. So, man, I appreciate this so much. It's going to give me, yeah, man, and some of the stuff I learned about you, just it makes me appreciate you more. It really does. And as I said, I've been doing this little thing purely for me, and I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Well, listen, we're going to end, and God bless everyone that has watched to the end. I highly doubt there are many of you.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Yeah. Okay, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, Norm.
Bye.
Bye.